What does it take to plan a display show?
Well, there's several different things that go into planning a show. First thing is going to be your venue. You're going to want to meet with, if it's going to be a special venue for like a wedding or something like that, you're going to want to meet with the venue owner themselves or who's in charge of the venue. We're going to want to look at the space and make sure that's adequate for distancing from buildings, audiences, things like that. And then we're going to look at safety. You're going to have a fallout area for where you're shooting your show. So safety is going to be our number one main thing with fallout area. What we mean by fallout is that if we're shooting aerial shells, you want to make sure that the audience is far enough away from where the area is going to be where the fireworks are going off. So we call that the fallout area, and that distance is going to vary depending on where the show is being shot at.
Is that like where the ashes fall on the crowd, like when you go to big fireworks shows?
Yeah, so some people may have been to shows where you're up close, you're only a couple hundred feet or a couple hundred yards away from where the aerial shells are going off, and then you see them burst in the air, and then you hear dinging on cars and things like that. That would be considered a fallout area. Now, there are several places that don't have a very large fallout area. However, with us, we always make sure that the fallout area is going to be large enough to where people don't have to worry about low breaks and shells that are breaking with debris and stuff from the shells themselves, making sure that people are not getting rained on with cardboard and ash and stuff like that. So if it's breezy, I mean, we're not going to be able to control which way the wind takes, stuff like that, but we are going to have most of the control over that fallout area, making sure that the audience is far enough away from the display so that we can keep everybody's safety intact. Once you go through those checks, the next thing is going to be the show lengths. Depending on your budget, depending on what you want for a show, show lengths are going to vary. Most of our shows are going to start at like 3 minutes, depending on what you have for a venue and a budget, and they go as long as you want them to. I mean, if you want an hour show, we'll give you an hour show. It's going to cost you a little bit more, but we'll still do an hour show for you. And then you're going to choose between consumer shows, or consumer show, I should say, and a pro show, or we can do a combination of both. Prices are going to differ depending on what you go with, as far as a all consumer show or an all pro show, and even with a mix of both, we're still going to have to meet in the middle as far as what pricing is going to be on those. So there's different budgets for everybody, and we can basically meet any budget anybody has as far as either pro or consumer. We'll do fountain shows. If you don't want aerial stuff and maybe you have little kids or something that you're having a birthday party for, we'll do an aerial or a fountain show for them. You know, we did one for our son for his birthday. It was only about 3 minutes long, but he loved it. So we can adjust anything a customer wants or a client wants to their needs and their budget. So once you've chosen if you want the consumer or pro level or a combination of both, then we talk about any additional things. We don't include music with our shows. However, for an additional cost, we could talk about that and come to an agreement possibly for doing a pyro musical. However, the cost is going to be pretty large just because of the months of planning. Now for our show, we do music for most of our shows. I start planning our show and music choice almost a year in advance. So that gives you an idea of how long it takes me to plan our show for our 4th of July. So if you're looking at having music added to any of your events, just know that we can work with you on that. However, there's going to be an additional cost as to how long it takes me to plan that. So it would be months in advance that we'd have to do that. So, and then after we've discussed all that, then it basically comes down to your date that you want the show and your budget. Like I said, we can work with anybody's budget. If you have a low budget, we can do a low budget show. If you have a high budget, the sky's the limit. I mean, you basically can call the shots on what you want. And that's what makes us, I think, different from a lot of other display companies out there, is we don't have a lot of overhead, so we don't have to compete with other people. We're a small family-owned business, and we can kind of, work with people and give people a little bit more bang for their buck, so to speak. So that's going to be basically what it takes to plan a show.